Welcome back to Talking of Business, where our goal is to give you, our listeners, tools, systems, and methodologies to help you maximize the bottom line of your organization.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking of Business with your hosts, me, Jordan Disberger, joined by me, my father, Russell Disberger. How are you doing, Dad?
I am doing well, and I am the CEO of Aspen Business Group. And Jordan and I are going to entertain you today with our business case studies.
Yes, so we're going to be diving into a couple case studies, or is it 3 case studies, of previous consulting work that my father did with Aspen Business Group with some other companies, which we will not name, but we'll set the stage and we'll set the problem that the businesses came to Aspen Business Group with, and we're going to kind of go through a little bit of an exercise where you, the listener, and me will be playing along and be trying to figure out how to solve the client's problem. And the hint is that the problem that the business comes with, the problem that the business comes to to Aspen Business Group with isn't necessarily the real problem here. And so that's going to be part of the fun, is identifying what the real problem is. So, Dad, what is our first case study?
First one is a specialized construction company in a small town in here in the United States. They have about 18 employees at this point. And their employee turnover is about 10% per year. The company has made money most every single year. And with the profits, the owner keeps reinvesting in other projects. But what he has done is gotten so many different other projects, which have turned into different companies, that he's really built no succession plan. And so he's trying to figure out, what do I do? And how do I actually ever exit this organization, because it's all dependent upon him.
So his problem is that he wants to make sure that there is a succession plan, so that if he were ever to move on, that the family could sustain, or the businesses can sustain, correct?
That is correct, but it's more not as much for the family, because him and his wife and children are fairly well taken care of.
So more for the
It's more
legacy.
for the legacy and the importance of reinvesting into their community. And they're afraid if they sell the business to an outside, like an investment banking firm or something of that nature, that they would not have the same community minded element that he does.
Okay, well, so now we, as the listeners, me and the rest of the listeners, we're gonna ask questions here, and you guys obviously can't ask questions, so hopefully I'll do a good job trying to figure out here. So to me, and you can kind of guide me along here, Dad, it sounds like there aren't any systems in place here. If he's managing all of these different entities on his own, he's got his own systems, and he's wearing many hats here. So what it sounds like to me, does he have managers or people who are central figures in each of these different entities that he has created, or is he the point man on all of them?
Well, you're pretty wise there, Jordan. Since these are all of his companies, he is the point person, probably has over 12 to 15 people directly reporting to him, and no real structure's been written down. And he will drive around or stop by each person's desk and provide feedback and go on. But it may take months before he circles back around. And so everybody behaves somewhat differently when he's by them versus when they're on their own. And so there's no consistency, and there's almost at times fear that can be built, not intentionally, but your fear that someone that you don't get to see all the time is going to provide you feedback that you've been doing it wrong. And so people have learned, in a sense, how to operate and do their job without the owner's mindset. But the owner, since it's his company, has a mindset of what he needs to do. So at this point, he's getting very exhausted and tired.
Yeah, so with him wearing all of the different hats, it's probably not sustainable for him to have a single successor to pass the baton off to here. I would imagine the solution that you pursued here was probably putting 2 to 3 individuals, or preparing 2 to 3 individuals to run the different sections, so each of them would have direct reports themselves, and then the head honcho guy would have 2 to 3 direct reports to him, and he would be able to allow those other direct reports to do most of the busy work going to each of the other 12 individuals. Is that about what you did?
For the most part, you have to put people in charge, and you have to somewhat have the owner take away his glass ceiling that he's built and back away. There's probably 6 or 7 different ways to operate or to achieve many of the goals that the owner wants, and they don't always have to be his way. And allow the individual leaders to, in a sense, be empowered to learn. And as long as they don't, financially create major damage to the company, his employees are going to have to learn, his leaders are going to have to learn the rightness of their decisions. And if he never allows them to grow, the company will never run on its own.
So
So
would you
yes, so we did put leaders in each of the roles, and we've told the owner to try to manage through KPIs, key performance indicators, finances or financials, and other critical success factors that he wants to see periodic reports on.
Fantastic. Yeah, and so that makes it a lot easier for him to hand it off. So that does make sense. Would you say that this individual was a micromanager, or
He probably would not quite describe himself as such, but clearly he has a tendency, based on the employee's perspective, to be called a micromanager. Yes, because they would see him swooping in and then stepping away. In his mind, he was giving them some wisdom to improve, but the employees is like, hey, I was doing just fine until you showed up.
awesome? Well, Dad, do you think we should fit another case study into this episode, or are we about at the top of the hour where you need to head off?
No, I actually I have, it's 2:30, so
Okay.
we're good.
All right. Well, we'll jump into the next case study. So
Well, hold it. So to summarize where we ended this up, this company is now going to try to sell, and we've set up a plan for the owner to try to sell to the employees. And we're putting together a plan that will be over 5 years for the employees to take over. Because remember, the key that he wanted was to be community minded, and so we have to get a kind of an advisory board of directors set forth, for the leaders put in play, and the owners being moved to that advisory board, and they'll provide feedback and try to get these individuals to stand on their own. But the idea eventually is to get these companies to be independent, so that the owner knows that the community is taken care of and the companies can grow. And the way that he's operated, it may have done very well for the community and for the business, but it's not transferable and it's not scalable.
You're saying it's not scalable
As he
as
had it.
everything conglomerated.
Right.
Right. Because yeah, that's hard to hand off, and it's hard, especially when someone's having to manage so many different ones to continue to scale. So no, that makes perfect sense. So next case study, is it the one where people swim?
Well, actually, Jordan, I was going to do a technology company next.
All right, technology.
And this technology company, it's software as a service, which means that they sell a product on which people pay an ongoing reoccurring fee for. This organization they were kind of early to the marketplace for their product, and they didn't have much competition. There was some competition, but they got out of the gates as one of the forefronts about 10 to 12 years ago, and they started to lead in their industry. The problem is the rate of growth that the owner had when he called is he could not figure out how to grow beyond 10% per year. And so he came across one of my other clients and was going to hire that CEO to consult with him, and said, you should use my consultant that helped me scale. And so this owner was giving me a lowdown of some of the problems. One of them is that some of the key workers were averaging between 65 and 70 hours per week. And it was a badge of honor to see who could work the most number of hours for this company. Turnover was very high. The leadership team was just installed, and none of the leaders that the owner had put installed had ever operated a company and or really have ever led a division or company before. Cash flow was good, not great, but good. And they had at the time 2 major markets or target markets that they were after.
Okay, so it sounds like his overall problem that he identified is, I'm not growing as fast as I'd like to. I can't grow faster than 10% per year. And it sounds like other problems that you identified in your summary were, one, that leadership is, I wouldn't say necessarily unqualified, but inexperienced might be a better word. And then staff is overworked and turnover is high. So I actually know what you did here. So it kind of is a little bit easier for me to draw the lines here. But obviously, I would poke at the turnover rate. Your employees are your fire, they're your fuel. So why are they having to work so many hours over? Is that the leadership issue? Is that because of the lack of experience there? Is that because of lack of systems? I would ask those employees why they're turning over or why they're putting so much extra time into the work. And so
I'll answer your question. 2 years prior, the company had overhired and had to lay off 30 to 40% of the employees. And so there was much fear within the organization that if you didn't bust tail, that you'd probably be potentially on the chopping block. So these individuals were giving of their arms, their legs to do what they needed to do to stay relevant to the owner.
So that sounds like a toxic culture as well. So I would, one, you need to win over those employees and not have them work off of fear, but work off of passion for what they're doing. And to do that, not over hiring, but you need to hire adequately. And then you need to set up systems to expedite the process. The only way to scale here is to not bring on employees who are going to work 70% overtime. The way to scale here is to improve your system so that everyone can work the optimum amount of hours, and then you just hire additional employees to continue to scale.
Well, yes and yes. The key thing is that they had no leadership pipeline.
Oh, so they weren't hiring from within the company, they were hiring leadership from outside organizations?
Well, they were hiring within, but there was no leadership pipeline, meaning they weren't developing their leaders. They were giving people jobs because they were available. One of the big issues that they had is that no one wanted to relocate to this community. So they needed to grow faster, but they were fearful that no one would come to their little town, and so thus they couldn't, in a sense, attract any talent. And so we had to, in a sense, develop a kind of a measurable goals and a pipeline throughout the organization where everyone always had someone that they were grooming to take their place, and even one or two people that could potentially take their place, so that if the company was able to, in a sense, start to scale and grow, that there was someone able to step into a new role similar to the one they had, or if their leader got promoted, that someone was able to take on. And so, in a sense, the barrier for growth really, one, were sales, but two, the pipeline was really choking everything down. And rather than focusing on growing the business, they were focused on doing their job, which was just how to maintain. And so we had to change the entire culture and get everyone focused on how to grow. And we became very much a sales organization, which took about 3 to 4 years to transform.
And we'll let you silence that phone, and you got it. All right. So now that is implemented, are employees still working 60-70% over their capacity? What's the current status of this client?
I'd say people are between 40 and 45 hours per week. Culture's good. They're actually known in the community as an employer of choice now. They went out and did what they could to actually start spending quite a large amount of money on employee training and development. So they started to actually even attract people from all over the United States to want to work for this company as they became known for how they treated and grew employees. But they had to go from being not known to, in a sense, becoming an employer of choice. And then they started speaking in quite a few conventions and everything, which more and more people began to learn a lot more about them. So they had an active PR campaign, just talking about their successes to other people, which one helped them attract clients, but it also helped them attract good talent, which then also helped them build their leadership pipeline.
Awesome. So yeah, that's not the solution that I drew to. I did know what you did for them, but no, that definitely does make sense. The rationalization is there, and that's those are great results that they have achieved since implementing that. So Dad, I actually think that this episode is a little bit over time, so we will continue with the other case studies in a future episode. But thank you for running through those. I'd give me a score of 1.5.
Well, I mean, I'd say that your assumption was very, very good, and I gave certain facts, but it's hard. I mean, one of the key things for any owner to understand is the employee pipeline or the leadership pipeline is probably the most valuable asset within the company, followed by its people. And I value the pipeline because if it's not working, there's no one that you can't scale, or if one of your employees left, the company begins to crumble. So as you hire, you've got to know that structure and how you're going to scale the organization or sustain it at least. And if you're not really growing, you're shrinking as the economy and whatnot continues to expand.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I imagine that with the first case study that you also the problem there was related to the pipeline as well. You had to put people in leadership, but then you also had to develop the pipeline for that leadership to continue, because there were no pipeline. So both of them have those similarities. So we'll probably call this episode Pipeline Dreams. I don't know.
Well, or you could call it the limiting factor for growth.
Yeah, that sounds more enticing. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. This has been Talking of Business, and we'll catch you again in 2 more weeks.